You know the Wu has a long history of mispronouncing words. Think about Raekwon's Stanima and Method Man's The Words I Deliver.
Go subscribe, yeah, subscribe.
It's the RZA. He stands close to walls like number 4, the lizard. RZA in 2022, I'm here for it. We already heard him on a great feature on Flatbush Zombies. Now we get a full-length EP with him and DJ Scratch. And maybe y'all don't know this, I haven't talked about it in a little while, but Wu Tang is my favorite of all time. In fact, the Wu is really responsible for getting me into hip-hop. And when we talk about the Wu, we're talking about RZA. A lot of people lost the historical context on how this man really changed hip-hop and how he really crafted not only the whole Wu-Tang sound, but a whole hip-hop sound and a direction that the music would go in. And not only the music, but the business. Maybe even more so on the business side. RZA changed how business deals are made and pretty much made the art of putting your homies on when you get a deal. So when people debate the greatest Wu-Tang member, it shouldn't even be a question. It's the RZA. I mean, yeah, it's debatable if you're talking about flow or you're talking about lyrics or you're talking about maybe the best album. But even on that latter point, RZA was the reason for pretty much any album you're gonna say is the best Wu album. Only Built for Cuban Links, he did the majority of the beats on that. Liquid Swords, Iron Man, RZA provided the backdrop that made those dudes sound so good. I mean, really, for the history of hip-hop, even greats like DJ Premier and The Alchemist did not do for hip-hop what the RZA did and didn't influence it in the ways that he did. And that's his production and business sense, but I also always felt that he was underrated as an MC. If you look at what he was spitting around 95 on Wu Gambino's or Fourth Chamber on his guest appearances there, or how he was flowing on the Gravediggaz records, especially their second project, his flow had evolved so much. Or by the time they got to Wu-Tang Forever, not a lot of people's favorite Wu project, but RZA's verses, you have to admit, were entirely razor sharp on that joint. RZA sharp voice was just cutting it up. It was like a razor. You could feel it in his flow. And I think the real problem for his legacy and why people today don't see it is because he was spending so much time letting others shine and letting others get on. I mean, imagine if he saved all the Cuban Links beats for himself for a solo joint. We'd be having a very different conversation about GOATs today. But on this EP, he's letting DJ Scratch handle the boards, another great New York producer, widely known for his work with Busta Rhymes, most notably Gimme Some More, but he's also produced for A Tribe Called Quest, The Roots, Ghostface, and so many more. Let's get into the project. So we got the intro, always the movie director mindset, RZA making a story out of his albums again, becoming this hero with a duality between brains, aka the RZA, and wildness, like aka Bobby Digital, and they're fighting the uninspired bots of hip-hop. Saturday afternoon Kung Fu Theater. Of course, this takes its name from RZA's own inspiration, the Kung Fu flicks that used to come on local TV on Saturday afternoon in the 70s when he was growing up. And from the beginning of his first verse, it reminds me of his first Bobby Digital album and the flow, cadence, and style that he had on that. And although some of this does seem phoned in, it gets much better as we progress through the album. And even here, we got some classic RZA scientific word salad. He says classical physics, mechanical physics, and thermodynamics, electromagnetism, and quantum theory. And in the last verse, he packs in a little meaning. He says, they want my money, they want my lab, they want my fame, but they won't accept my teachings. Basically saying people want everything, but they aren't willing to put in the work or be humble enough to follow the advice of those who achieve it. And we got some good actual scratching from DJ Scratch to play this track out. And Scratch shows off that forgotten skill through many of the tracks on this album. Pugilism, that means fighting. By the way, this is a nice Wu style beat, complete with the Kung Fu Flick sample. And RZA sounds a little more inspired on this than the previous track, kicking a nice flow from the jump. I like how he pronounces tuberculosis to get it to rhyme with perfect focus. You know the Wu has a long history of mispronouncing words. Think about Raekwon's Stanima and Method Man's The Words I Deliver. Oops, I mean deliver like the Hudson River. Yeah, y'all know that. And Scratch really isn't phoning anything in on the beat as we get some strings added towards the end of the track to accentuate RZA's extended second verse. Never Love Again, RZA ain't afraid to show his age on this. And for the record, I'm catching his references, but they were all before my time. In the course of his first verse alone, he mentions 70s TV, Laverne and Shirley, Mork and Mindy, and the Marilyn Monroe movie 7 Year Itch. And he's doing all that to describe this freaky girl he was in love with, but things went south quickly. He says, any cipher I would enter, I'd learn to adapt. Papa Wu told me, yo, love is a trap. I proceeded with caution, we didn't need the abortion. I never knew you'd use my seed for extortion. Fate of the World. This one's really dope. Semi-dark descriptions, but he's on his scientific, religious mysticism again. Rejuvenate the blood through tendons in the bone marrow. Light always shine, we just trapped inside the earth's shadow. The sky is God's eye, the sun the pupil. Yes, the wise recognize the fool is unscrupulous. Maybe I just mispronounced that. Unscrupulous, I don't know what I'm talking about. I've been listening to the RZA. I gotta mispronounce some shit. But there's some nice double entendres and abstractness. The sun, yeah, after talking about God, you see what he's going for there. And RZA has really created his own religion over time by mixing together different elements of all religion. And that's really what this song is about, bringing everybody together for the greater good. And I'm gonna drink to this. We are close to St. Patrick's Day, so I got an Irish-inspired, the Craig, Irish-style red IPA. It is from Harpoon in Boston, Massachusetts, and I'm enjoying this like I'm enjoying this EP. Let's get back to it. Fisherman. This sounds like an Ennio Morricone sample. Morricone was the composer of the old Clint Eastwood movies, most notably The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. You know that track. And he more recently worked with Tarantino, who RZA also has a connection with, having worked with him on Kill Bill, and Quentin producing RZA's directorial debut, The Man with the Iron Fist. And if you don't think you know Morricone beyond that good, bad, and ugly theme, you do. He has been sampled by Jay-Z, Eminem, Atmosphere, and a lot more, including the RZA, many times, maybe most notably on the track Duel of the Iron Mike. Got a nice flow again from RZA on this, especially on the second verse. And I like that he's maintaining that old school approach to song structure where you save your intensity and your best verse for last. And there's lines on this track too that remind me of the track Pit of Snakes by Gravediggaz. And on that track, I remember I was taking a science test and I had my headphones on and a question came up. What's in the atmosphere? And then the next thing I know, RZA says, I'm in the atmosphere like nitrogen, hydrogen, carbon dioxide. And he just starts listing everything off on his scientific mysticism again. I'm like, all right, I got the answer. Everything I know, I learned from the Wu. Kaiju is the last song on the album. RZA has always been a fan of world music, even releasing a world-inspired album called The World According to RZA. And they include a foreign music sample on this track. And RZA tells the story of releasing some Godzilla-type monster on the earth to make people pay for the way that they're destroying the earth. This is his own version of Armageddon, as he reveals at the end of this EP. I'm really surprised this was as good as it was. It did what an EP should do. Every song served a purpose. There were no skips, and it made me want to hear more by the end of the project. RZA's verses are solid and still true to his style, while Scratch produced a fitting and interesting backdrop for him. So I'm gonna rate this a 4 out of a 6-pack. Thanks for watching my review of the RZA and DJ Scratch's Saturday Night Kung Fu Theater. If you like this, go ahead and hit like now and hit me up in the comments. If you didn't like it, also let me know why in the comments. I drop hip-hop and hops related content consistently, so subscribe to my channel now, and until I see you next time, keep buzzing. Fucking man says subscribe.
But if he's on his channel saying that somebody's album is better than mine, unsubscribe to that motherfucker.
No, your album's the best, man.
There you go. Subscribe.
Yeah.
Subscribe.